And you might be wondering, cow care, I don't care. But I think everyone cares for the earth. And Maharaj always emphasizes the point, earth care means cow care. And Maharaj is bringing this topic and propagating this topic in the academic world, but also to the general public and also to the devotees. And Maharaj is emphasizing the importance that we care for cows. So this is the topic we are going to discuss today. So we are very happy, and I wish you a very good evening. Hare Krishna.
Maybe we should just start with this. There's been a lot of kirtan this afternoon. Very sweet kirtan. Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna. So nice to see all you young, fresh faces. It's always a question whether we get the technology working. And if you could move the whole thing a little back so that I can see whether it's working. Okay, that's fine. Ooh. Well, they need to also see. It doesn't, yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. But let's see if we get it working. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Svapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatrumyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tata Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you all for being here for this little presentation, which is a second showing of something I did, let's see, April 22nd this year on Earth Day. Did you know that there's an Earth Day? Should be that every day is Earth Day, but okay, we get one day a year. Oh, could I have a small table to put this on? Yeah, that'll be good. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Oops. Oh, yeah. What would we do without the machines? Okay. Now you may, the techies amongst you may say, how come he doesn't make it full screen? And the answer is because I don't know how. I mean, I know how here, but when it goes there, generally it doesn't work. These guys and these guys don't like each other so much. Okay, cow care is earth care. I was asked to give a presentation on this subject on Earth Day for devotees, and so that's what I did. So I'm really just recycling this for you. I hope you don't mind. And it may still be interesting for you that there is such a thing as Earth Day. It was started officially in 1970. It took that long. And they have a theme every year, a special theme, and this year, 2024, the theme is Planet versus Plastics. We'll come to that a bit later to mention it briefly. I'm going to be now, okay, this is cows and earth connecting the dots, but I'm going to be doing a fair amount of sort of background, getting the bigger picture first. What is the problem before we get to the solution? And I'm going to start with a longer quote from a professor of environmental studies in America, Jeff Sebo, who says, every year humans harm and kill trillions of non-humans directly through activities such as factory farming, deforestation, and the wildlife trade. We also harm and kill trillions of non-humans indirectly through the impacts of our development, consumption, and pollution. And he goes on to say, more generally, our treatment of other animals is contributing to pandemics, climate change, and other global threats, and these threats are, in turn, contributing to suffering and death for humans and non-humans alike. And then he makes his kind of main point here. Much of this harm is foreseeable and avoidable. But we look the other way and we allow the harm to increase with each passing year. The book this is from it's called Saving Animals, Saving Ourselves. It's very, very good book. It's very clearly set out what could be involved in saving animals and saving ourselves. He goes on to say, unfortunately, this work will not be easy, in part because pandemics, climate change, and other human-caused global threats are, to adapt a term by Stephen Gardner, perfect moral superstorms. That is, they are interspecies, international, and intergenerational collective action problems, where we all have an incentive to be part of the problem rather than part of the solution. And where the individuals most responsible for the problem, that's us, are in the global X number of zeros, 1, 0 point, in other words, a tiny percentage, Different from the individuals most impacted, and then he gives 99.99, etc. percent. And then he goes on to say, addressing these threats ethically and effectively requires transforming not only our external social, political, economic, and ecological systems, but also our internal beliefs, values, intentions, and expectations. And this last line, I think, is a key for us, devotees of Krishna. We're all about beliefs and values and intentions and expectations. But I want to raise a bit of a challenging question for ourselves, and that is, are we complicit in what we deplore? You know the word complicit? Everyone knows. Complicit means we're in the conspiracy. We're part of the conspiracy. So I'm raising this question: are we part of the problem rather than part of the solution? What do we deplore? Because the question was, are we complicit in what we deplore? You know the word deplore? We hate it. It's terrible. What do we deplore? Horrendous treatment of animals of all kinds, not least 300 million, the number of cows killed annually worldwide. That's 34,000, the number of cows killed hourly. So in the last hour, 10 minutes from now, if you consider from when the Gora Arti began, some 34,000 cows worldwide have been slaughtered. Furthermore, today, animal agriculture is responsible for 20 to 33% of all freshwater consumption worldwide. And how much water is there on the planet? There's a lot of water, but 97% of it is salt water. So the fresh water is approximately 3%. Of that 3%, 20 to 33% is being consumed for animal agriculture. More numbers. 89 point so many numbers billion animals, land animals, were slaughtered in 2017. Today is 2024, so we are 7 years later. That means substantial amount more because of increased population, despite an increased percentage of people becoming vegetarian or vegan in America. Percentage has gone up to possibly 5%, but that's all kind of canceled out by population increase. And of course, the animal agriculture industries are doing all they can to make sure it continues to increase. That's approximately 10 land animals per year per human being being consumed. Of course, this is including larger and smaller animals, mainly smaller animals, mainly chickens, but still also larger. And this is not counting sea animals, which is probably well in the trillions. Now, what means 1 billion? We're talking big numbers. What means 1 billion? Take 1,000, right? let's imagine 1,000 cows, and multiply that by 1,000. So 1,000 thousands, you have 1 million. Multiply that by 1,000, and you have 1 billion. Multiply that by 89, and we get the number of animals, probably over 90 billion now. Yeah, these are the statistics that are being taken on this. Livestock, as they call it, to sort of depersonalize animals, they call them livestock. Or livestock feed occupies 1/3 of the Earth's ice-free land. So either the animals or the fields which are growing the grains and the hay for feeding the animals is taking 1/3 of the land which is not under ice. 1 acre of land, you know what an acre is? It's about 0.4 hectares. 1 acre of land can only yield 250 pounds of beef. That has been compared to 50,000 pounds of tomatoes, 53,000 pounds of potatoes, 30,000 pounds of carrots. That's a big difference. So these things we deplore, and yet, and I want to continue to ask uncomfortable questions. There is ISKCON's inconvenient truth. What is that? Now, some of you may not like me for this. Thinking that being vegetarian and offering our food to Krishna is enough. Having a few small farms with a few protected cows and thinking this is enough. And later I'll say a bit more about how many farms, how many cows we have. Participating fully in the fossil fuel-based economy and thinking it's okay since, quote, we do everything for Krishna. Also, this is my own reflection. It seems to me we have something of a ambivalent notion of different animals. We say we love cows. What about dogs? Dogs are kind of down low on the scale of our beloved animals, although for a huge number of people it would be the other way around. I won't get into this, but there's discussion in academic circles, or has been, about what's been called the internal conflict of tradition. Could it be that within our tradition there's some right inside, not something you can easily resolve because it's integral to the tradition, something called the internal conflict. Another reflection I had comes in relation to a book I read by the late Houston Smith, Why Religion Matters, The Fate of the Human Spirit in an Age of Disbelief. Houston Smith was a very well-known scholar of religion who I met. I had lunch with one time in Berkeley. very, very thoughtful, very nice man, very dedicated to religious life personally. In this book, he identifies what he calls the tunnel of trivialized spirituality. And he says this tunnel has four sides. One side, I think he said it's the floor, is what he called scientism, which is to be distinguished from science. Science is not a bad thing. Scientism is a no-no. Scientism is the idea that science is going to solve everything. Science, if we just would know more, then it's what's going to solve everything. And it's a belief system which is it's atheistic, and it makes huge metaphysical assumptions about reality, that it's essentially matter and nothing beyond matter. Modern education. Well, I'll just say briefly these remaining three: modern education, modern law, mass media, and social media all tend to trivialize religion instead of taking it seriously. They only take it seriously as something to report when there's conflict, between two religious traditions. I won't go into this. This could be another discussion, I think. Okay, now that I have you all enough depressed, Srila Prabhupada brought a challenge to all of this. And first, let's start with a general comment he made. Human prosperity flourishes by natural gifts and not by gigantic industrial enterprises. The natural law is that the human being may take advantage of these godly gifts by nature and satisfactorily flourish on them without being captivated by the exploitative motive of lording it over material nature. The more we attempt to exploit material nature according to our whims of enjoyment, the more we shall become entrapped by the reaction of such exploitative attempts. So that kind of, in a nutshell, tells what is the problem and what is the solution in broad terms, but in essential terms nonetheless. Okay, but now I want to, before going more into our own solution, I think it's good to hold off a bit and consider what another scholar, Mark Zuckerberg, not the Facebook Zuckerberg or whatever his name is, has written in a very interesting article. He identifies two problematic attitudes to nature. There's what he calls the objectivist techno-scientific point of view, and there's the subjectivist romantic point of view. And I think it's good to be aware we may kind of be not so surprised by the first of these, but the second one, it just might be that we more or less identify ourselves with it. But what he's saying is this is just as much a problem as the first one. The first one, the objectivist techno-scientific point of view, is the idea that nature, which is in quotation marks, because you can debate until your throat is very dry what do you mean by nature in terms of modern usage, is considered a standing reserve for human use, and it has no intrinsic value. It has instrumental value, but no intrinsic value. And the language that's used in objectivist techno-scientific point of view is that there are resources, there's natural capital, and I hadn't heard this one before myself, ecosystem services. Somehow that sounds really subtly obnoxious. Anyway, I think you get the idea very quickly what that's about. I'm going to, in the next slide, I'll show this a bit more clearly. But his point is both of these perspectives are giving us a distorted view of basic relations, basic existential relations between ourselves, humans, and the environment. Okay, so objectivist techno-scientific perspective on the left side, characteristics, it privileges science. It privileges the dominance of nature. It privileges an artificial world, a mechanistic world. Nature is a container of resources, and it's basically anthropocentric. You've probably heard this term before. Anthropocentric, human-centered. It's us humans that are the measure of reality. Then the subjectivist, the romantic perspective, which again the scholar is saying is problematic. He's saying, well, yes, it privileges subjective feeling. That may sound good. It privileges a love of nature. That may sound good. It promotes harmony, naturalness, authenticity. That sounds pretty good. But nature, again in quotation marks, what is it? It's a mirror of our subjective feelings. A paradise lost, a place of harmony and goodness. Does this sound like what the Bhagavatam is describing as material nature? Again, it's anthropocentric. So there's a problem here. Okay, back to Srila Prabhupada. Here he gets more specific about farming. If we have sufficient grains, fruits, vegetables, and herbs, then what is the necessity of running a slaughterhouse and killing poor animals? A man need not kill an animal if he has sufficient grains and vegetables to eat. But all these natural gifts are dependent on the mercy of the Lord. What we need, therefore, is to be obedient to the laws of the Lord and achieve the perfection of human life by devotional service. So that also kind of encapsulates what Prabhupada would say in so many ways and so many times. And I think it's interesting that Srila Prabhupada puts so much emphasis on this very practical side of life. I don't think we will find this in the earlier acharyas of our own tradition. I don't think you'll find anything. We may say, well, because in earlier times there was not the problem we have today. Yes, that could be a reason, but still, already by By the late 19th century, early 20th century, there was a problem. A lot of animal slaughter was going on. In India, especially, cow slaughter was going on mainly for the British Army. That was the main problem. So, what more can we do to connect the dots? I'm saying there's dots to be made to connect between cows and earth. We care for the earth, great. Can we also care for cows? Can we connect the two? So I'm suggesting maybe we need first to recognize at least some complicity. And we may need to feel some repentance. You know the word repentance. Feeling bad for being complicit. This story of Kaliya, you all know, and I think it's a nice pastime of Krishna to remember as a sort of model of Krishna being the best of environmentalists. And he as you know, the pastime is so sublime in that what does Krishna do? He dances. He dances in a wonderful way on the hoods of Kaliya. And in this way, he humbles Kaliya and sends Kaliya away. Feeling responsible. I've sort of played with the word responsible. In English, it's spelled as it is on the left. But there's connected with this the idea of being able to respond. And here I would recommend a wonderful seminar. You can find it on, guess what, YouTube, of Radhika Raman Prabhu. He did I think a 3-part seminar in Silicon Valley. Maybe it was this last year, on engaged Vaishnavism, which he explains very systematically why it's a good idea. Do we have it? No. Why it's a good idea for Vaishnavas to be engaged in the world. Okay. I thought it's something to suggest that we become more informed about what's going on in relation to the environment. It's difficult to be well informed, but there's more and more resources. The subject has become very mainstream in the last 30, 40 years. It used to be if you were worried about climate change or anything with the environment, you were kind of weird, kind of wacky, kind of out of tune with the real world. But now it's become very, very mainstream. And this, I think, is one reason for us to really take it up, because people are ready to listen. Ready to listen on this, about this subject. And we do have things to say. Aside from all the statistics, we have solutions. At least we have the principles of the solutions. Yes, since this is the year of environment and plastics, it's not recommended, it's anticipated that by the year 2050, the amount of plastics in the oceans will equal the total biomass in the oceans. Of course, the total biomass in the oceans is probably getting depleted quickly also. That's another thing. ISKCON farms, I don't have the numbers with me of numbers of farms, but this is roughly the number of cows that we have worldwide. The largest number by far is in India, with some 4,000 spread around in different projects. And then the rest, after that comes America with 300, 200 in Europe, Australia 180. I don't know where that's pointing to that says 20. It's not Kazakhstan, maybe. Russia 122, South America 36. That's well, that's something. It's not nothing, it's something. But how many cows are killed in 1 hour on the planet? What did we say? 34,000. Hare Krishna. I think we could increase the numbers, but not just to have numbers, but to show how they can be integral to the solution to all these environmental problems. Okay, Prabhupada says, the protection of cows is not merely a religious sentiment, but a means to secure the highest benefit for human society. So people think, oh, yeah, these, Hindus, they have these religious sentiments. That's not going to be very persuasive to people. What I've discussed very briefly in the book, which I'll show you in a minute, is discussion of what is called the ethics of care, which is a kind of new trend in the discipline of ethical thought. It's quite new. It's from the 1980s. And I found it very helpful. I think it's something that we can relate to. Then anticipatory communities. This is an idea from one Christian scholar who talks about communities concerned about the environment. And he says, okay, we have alternative communities. They're minuscule. They're tiny compared to the vast populations of the world. But at least there's something, and we can say that they anticipate possibilities. So I think it's a nice, helpful way of thinking of our communities as well. Farm communities and related. Now, there's a concept in political philosophy called communitarianism. It's basically pitched against individualism, and the debate goes on, which is better, and so on. So I proposed Dharma-based communitarianism, and I discuss a bit in the book what I mean by that. And then, a very interesting idea, animal citizenship. And I think there's a couple of scholars who discuss this, but Srila Prabhupada talks about it also, because he says all of the praja of a kingdom are it's the responsibility of the king to protect all the praja in his kingdom, including animals. And so I think that's suggesting animal citizenship. And there's some quite precise discussion, which I elaborate on in this book, from these two scholars who show how the notion of citizenship that we usually think of can be stretched so that we can accommodate the idea of animals as such. Yeah, so one example here of an anticipatory community is New Vrajadam in Hungary. Do we have anyone here from New Vrajadam? Hare Krishna. Beautiful. People come in for when they first come to New Vrajadam, they come and they see the barn. This is the barn. They see it up on the hill on the left, and they think it must be the temple. And in some sense we can say, yes, it is. Dharma-based communitarianism, this is, okay, I confess, I just found this on the internet, but I thought it's interesting. So, leftism, rightism, communitarianism, individualism, but related in terms of cultural focus and economic focus, either on the individual or the community. So it's a kind of yantra that they're suggesting, which could be certainly elaborated on. Okay, I'm going through this kind of quickly because I want to see what questions and thoughts you may have. This is one of the scholars who's written on animal citizenship, Sue Donaldson, has a Center for Humans and Nature. So people are, thinking about these things. As you may know, there's an ISKCON ministry of cow protection and agriculture. And it has, since recently, sort of shifted its focus to emphasize education. And so, as we speak, they are running a course, an online course on cow care, cow protection. And this will be the second time it's being run. And it's being taught by real, experienced cow carers, devotees who know what they're talking about, not just reading books like me. Okay, this is coming toward the end. What about cow care and earth care? So I suggest we become more informed about cows. Who knows how to milk a cow? Anybody here? A few of you? Yes. Just talking about cows, I think, is a good idea. We can generate more interest in cows rather than just forgetting about them in the barn. We can also ask ourselves, how could I, practically serve cows and encourage others to do so? I like to tell devotees, occasionally a devotee will come to me and say, Maharaj, I have such problems in my life. I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. It's this, that, it's this, that, it's this, that, and the other. So many problems. And I have a 2-word answer. Serve cows. And they kind of go, huh? And some of them have taken my suggestion seriously, and they find some way to serve cows, and then they come back to me and they say, Maharaj, it's unbelievable. All my problems are solved. I'm serving cows. We were talking about problem solving this morning. You might try this yourself. Save yourself a lot of preaching energy. I personally feel we need to talk more about the ethics of drinking milk. I think we drink a lot more and we eat a lot more dairy products than we need to. Srila Prabhupada said 1 small glass a day. That's what an adult should have. And then more broadly, rethinking our lifestyles, individually, collectively. And finally, maybe we should not just wait. Patience is a virtue, I know, but, well, I don't know. Let's see if this will work this time. Yeah. Okay, watch closely. What's happening here? It's a bullock cart, yeah. What are they doing? No. Yeah, they're just bringing hay to the barn. Are they in a big hurry? Not really. Are they getting there to the barn? Yeah. Yeah, so, Hare Krishna, that's life on the farm. Okay, there is, for any of you interested, there is this book, and it's open access. You can download it, the digital version of it, if you like. It's at this link, and it explains more about a few things of what I've said, especially toward the end, these 4 aspects. I think I'll stop there. Yeah, and see if you have any thoughts on any of this. Cow care is earth care. That's the point. That's the general point. And in a way, you could say this is just kind of, the whole thing is kind of an introduction, and one could go into more detail after this. But it is what it is. Hare Krishna. Questions? Thoughts? Yes, Maharaj.
Maharaj, when we hear about this... Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for presenting this. I was just thinking for myself, when we hear about this topic and we understand why it's so important, but I think, especially speaking for myself and maybe many others, because we grew up in cities, and for me, I had 0 contact with nature, proper nature.
You saw the sky sometimes.
I saw the sky sometimes in London.
Right.
So it's almost like we just we grow up in cities, in an urban jungle, like so disconnected from animals, so disconnected from nature, that even when we hear it, and it's just like, I feel like I have a lack of sensitivity to it just because I didn't grow up in nature.
Yeah.
And I also feel for devotees who grew up in cities to even think of living on a farm, it's just it's like
a curse.
horrifying, yeah. It's what do you do all day?
What do you do all day?
So is it that we also have to gradually expose devotees to this kind of to build that sensitivity, to build that appreciation, to build that, because it just feels like unless you're really connected with nature and you really have an appreciation and a love and a connection with nature in that sense, it's really hard to be like a change maker or conscious change maker.
Yeah. There was one quite well-known sadhu in Vrindavan, very learned scholar, who also had cows, and he would spend every morning, I think the whole morning, he would spend himself taking care of the cows, even when he was very elderly. And he would tell his students, he would emphasize, you have to take care of the cows. What do you think you're going to do when you get to Vrindavan in the spiritual world? You better get started now practicing if you want to be with Krishna and the cows in Goloka Vrindavan. It's called Goloka, right? So he makes that point. But yeah, where's the where the transition? How do we go beyond just sort of the what's the word? The nostalgia, the fantasy of a pastoral life. I think it's something we have to work on. But the little thing I'm trying to do is let's talk about it. Let's keep talking about it. Kalakanta Prabhu, who is the global minister for cow protection and agriculture, one thing he wants to start up now is urban gardening. Wants to get this promoted amongst devotees, congregation. There's kind of a movement, apparently. I think it's interesting. Some of you may have had some of this impact you vaguely. During the COVID time, suddenly we were all conscious, where are we getting our food from? And I think a lot of people started thinking, gosh, maybe I should have some land for growing something. Of course, the first thing that happened is everyone ran out and bought toilet paper. As if you're going to eat toilet paper. I don't know. I don't know what. I mean, that just shows how out of touch people are. But that was the big issue, right? You heard about that? Yeah. But my point is, as soon as the COVID kind of panic passed, I think just as quickly as it came, just as quickly everyone sort of forgot about it. That, potatoes do come from the ground. They don't just come from the supermarket. So how do we close that gap? I don't know. I think we have to keep talking about it and trying in small ways. I'm a kind of a champion of start small, whatever it is that looks overwhelming, that we start small. Because from small you get a little success in something, and that success makes you feel inspired. And then you start thinking, well, how could we expand this? How could we develop this? And then Krishna starts giving ideas. And he starts giving some facility. And we can't anticipate how all of that starts happening. But it can happen. In Radhadesh, what's the gardener's name? Thibaut, yeah. Krishna sent a professional gardener, and he's doing an amazing development of their garden with a very specific aim. He told me, I want to develop this garden to the point where we can maintain 100 devotees for the entire year from this garden. That's his aim, and he has a systematic, this is how we're going to do it. So these things can come. We shouldn't. So therefore, as Prabhupada, as we all know, Prabhupada said, "Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary." We don't like to be thought of as fools, do we? So Prabhupada would say, "You Westerners, you have to use your brain. Use your brain. How to spread this movement." Yeah. Yes. Gordon.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. I have few, but kind of not challenging, but just putting at the side.
Yeah.
So just yesterday when I was in the street, I met a person, just in a conversation, he asked, "Oh, where are you traveling from?" I told him that, okay, I'm just come from Norway and going back in 10 days. And then what next? And I told him my travel schedule. And he was like baffled because he just came from this environmental places where they're asking people to cut down on their traveling.
Uh-huh.
So my question, the first question is like, in the presentation you mentioned that at the name of Krishna consciousness, we are not careful about how we are impacting the environment.
Yeah.
We see like our preaching more or less is traveling all the time.
Using fossil fuels to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had to give him a Krishna conscious understanding that at the name of Krishna we're doing this. And so first thing, what's your take? Because we do travel a lot.
Yeah.
So are we going to cut down on that? And why do we specifically care about this project and not about those people who are talking about cutting down on fossil fuel?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I wish I could just stop traveling. Huh? I'll just... No, I don't know about here. Yeah, I don't have a solution. I'm a culprit. I'm also traveling. Although, I mean, I'm getting older and I'm trying to slow down and not travel quite so much. But as a society, yes, we're all out there in our vehicles. In 2019, I was in Gitanagari. Kalakanta Prabhu was there, and he organized that we meet with one Amish family that lives. There are many, many Amish people in that area in Pennsylvania, and the Amish are very, very much known for their not complete avoidance, but they're very quite strongly standoffish from all sorts of technology. So we had a wonderful conversation with one gentleman for about 2 hours, about 10 of us sort of cross-examining him and everything. But what struck me more than anything was we're in two totally different worlds. His world is essentially how far can you go with a horse and buggy in 2 hours' time. Their community size is determined by that time and that distance, because they have no fixed church building. They go from one of their members' house to another for their Sunday church events, and they get there by horse and buggy. And if it takes longer than 2 hours to get there, then they will have another community. They'll meet with others that are closer. And I was listening to all this and thinking, oh my God, we're buzzing all over the planet, flying here, flying there, emitting megatons of carbon, and as if there's no tomorrow. It's an interesting thing that in recent years there's been more and more talk about in this realm of environmental ethics, that we need to be thinking about the next generation, because if we don't, they're all going to be cursing us. You know, they're going to be looking back on us and saying, what did they do? They ruined everything, and now it's too late. Because there's a lot of scientific evidence, and it's not unreasonable evidence. There's quite a good amount of it, that there's a tipping point at which the climate change actually goes quite thoroughly out of control and spirals and just gets worse and worse. And there's nothing, you know, we could do all we want, but there's nothing that can be done. So we're kind of cooking this planet. It seems to be what's happening. There's, of course, climate change denial. I talk about this in another presentation I gave. We could decide to do climate change denial. We could. There's a certain logic to it. Or we can go to the other extreme of being apocalyptic and say it's anyway all going to collapse sooner or later, and there's nothing we can do about that. So we won't do anything, we'll just chant Hare Krishna. Is that responsible? Is that preaching? Is that our mission? If we have a mission? Anyway, so I was just struck when we met the Amish people, how different our approach is. And I appreciated their approach. They've been around for a few hundred years. They're not going away. They may not be changing the world, but it's kind of like everyone respects the Amish. And I think one thing we could aim for is more, with more farm communities that really function, dare I say, with stable families. Oh, and Hare Krishna. That this would have a sort of knock-on effect. People would say, "Oh, look at the Hare Krishnas; they're doing something." But I think we have a lot of homework to do before that will be very, very widely the case. We have a few, I think, good, in some respects, good examples. I like to point to the New Rajadam community. For one reason, they are monitoring in extreme detail statistics of their own sustainability in percentages in 50 departments, 50 departments of their community. And they told me that, they showed me the spreadsheets, and of their 50 departments, the one which is most self-sustaining is the cow department at 50%. Only 50% sustainability. They're working on it to increase. And Shivaram Swami told me the overall project, they said, is 33% self-sustaining. He said, in a pinch, if the outside economy collapses, we can make it 100% self-sufficient in a week. So I like their thinking. They're really, they're actually serious about this, and that's impressive. And they have, of course, so many guests come just out of curiosity, but also scholars are coming there, and they're studying all different aspects of the community. Sociologists and economists are coming, and so on. How's that for not answering your question?
No problem, Maharaj. I have another one to not answer. Since we are a small family here, it's like you gave the example of Kaliya in your presentation, and you said that how Kaliya was polluting the lake, and of course when the cows were drinking and different people were dying. But we see the resident couldn't do much. Krishna has to intervene himself to save them. So just to play a devil's advocate. So here Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in his last speech to the members of Gaudiya Math, delivered on December the 23rd, 1936, he said this: living in this world, one has to face many kinds of difficulties. It is not our job to try and remove those difficulties, nor should they depress us. We have no attachment or hostility towards anyone in this world. All arrangements of this world are temporary. Everyone has an indispensable need for the absolute truth. May all of you, with one goal and in harmony with each other, attain the right to serve the Ashraya Vigraha, Sri Krishna. So, we're talking about cow care at this moment.
Devil's advocate, indeed.
We're talking about cow care, Maharaj, but say if there would be a world war here right now, we wouldn't talk about this. There would be some other problem. It would be a bigger problem or some other problem. So how far we would stretch and not deviate and not focus on something else.
Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur is giving us the absolute truth, and he's giving us the what we're actually about is sharing the absolute truth. But as soon as we say that, then we can ask, so how are we doing that? We can say, well, we distribute books, we speak to people. Okay. What do we want them to do? Well, we want them to chant Hare Krishna, want them to worship Krishna. We can go, down the line. And then at some point, we'll start it'll get to more practical things, like how do we get our food? And what I think we see is so radical in Srila Prabhupada is how he wanted to address the whole thing. Of course, he spoke very much in relation to Varnashrama, and that's something we all kind of feel, we have mixed feelings about, I would say. And yes, this is a world where there's no end to problems, and we're not going to solve them, but we can be seen as being part of the solution rather than part of the problem. I think that's what we want to do. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
One aspect is on protection of cows. I remember growing up in India, I knew where the milk is coming from. It was a Goshala, and I knew the milkman also. And then when I moved to the West, of course there were these bottled packages and you don't know where it comes from. And last week Diana and I, we went to this farm which is actually owned by the university. It was a cow farm. It was quite painful experience because we saw how they deal with the cows. They had about 100 cows, and then they had holes drilled into the stomach, and so much is happening. And that's how we were discussing, and especially Diana was quite moved by the experience of that's how we are educating our farmers. And I was thinking that of course we have the courses where we try to educate devotees, but have we ever thought about actually making it good enough to actually go to schools and educate farmers also, because they're just having a completely opposite education of abusing cows. And that's we can preach, and later these individuals become devotees, and then the question is how conscious are they of this. And I was thinking of this example of Govardhan Eco Village, that they do it so well that it's seen as an example, and even scientists go there to explore these subject matters. So are we maybe thinking in this term too? So that was just a first reflection.
Good. Let us do more of that. Let us be thinking in that direction. Yeah, Prabhupada said he wanted to create Brahminical culture, and the Brahmins are the teachers. And what are we teaching, and to whom? It's true, we should be teaching the farmers, showing them there's a different way.
Just had another reflection, Maharaj, if you allow, that I was just comparing, at least on a personal level, my consciousness towards how I use the environment and plastic use, etc. And if I compare when I was living on my own, I was quite conscious because I was surrounded by university students who were quite conscious. And then after one point when I moved into the temple, a lot of things changed. I mean, not to blame the fact that I moved into the temple, but then I was thinking of how we keep preaching, going big in terms of caring for the environment and our farms. And I was thinking maybe the solution is going small and making it more personally relevant. And because, for example, in New Vrajadham, when Radhakrishna Prabhu took us around, and when we went to the Goshala, then I asked the question, are you also self-sustained in terms of ghee? He said no. And why? Because it's too big a quantity. And then I was thinking, what are your thoughts of actually going small rather than going big?
Yes, small is beautiful. The saying goes. Yes, Diana.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for this important lecture. A short question. I live in the countryside, and how should I say, quite there there is a little in a little village with approximately 100 inhabitants, and I really like to farming. And my one neighbor, a farmer, he lives quite close to our house, and he's quite struggling, and I know him for many years. And sometimes he asks me to help him, because now it's also the hay season and a lot to do, and he's really struggling. And I help him once or twice a week, but sometimes I'm between the chairs. I don't know if it's said in English, but some close people say to me, "You are not responsible for this. You can't rescue all cows in this world, or even women are not meant to do farming." And I'm quite happy there when I can help, at least with little steps. And I see, for example, this farmer, he's quite open-minded, but of course it's heavy to be there sometimes. But what do you say to me? Is it okay to be there, to help there, or should I read instead of a book and not to go anymore?
I think you have to follow your own inclination in that regard. I think we talked about this earlier today. I think it's not wrong that you be there, and you can be a positive influence of some sort in some small way. So, from your experience, that could then also be a source. Eventually, it might be something that, based on that, you would have a clear sense of how to relate with other farmers in the future, and that could become an effective way of being yourself. Yeah.
Thank you.
So maybe, shall we call it a day? Oh, no.
Hi Krishna, thank you.
Hare.
I was just thinking about some things that you presented in your presentation, like legally speaking, because that's my background, like animal citizenship and things like that. And it's all nice. And even today, today the law sees animals as things. So they're not persons or anything, even though there are some proponents of animal rights and so on.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about this concept of citizenship, that a citizenship means that you have a right to vote, right? And that you're a responsible citizen in a state. And if you are not that, and there are, like, for example, children who still don't have a right to vote, but then there are parents who are like responsible for the children and so on.
Yeah.
So I am thinking it's all about responsibility in the end, and the responsibility that, for example, we are looking for in people when we talk about cow care is something that is very much connected with consciousness. I mean, you were saying it, but I was just thinking about it. It's very much connected with Krishna consciousness and the fact that we are not this body and that we are not here to enjoy and that we should control our senses, because if this is some kind of a value for us, of us as spirit souls, and seeing everyone else around us as spirit soul, then we can take this duty and the responsibility to take care. So I'm just thinking how everything is also very much connected with raising the consciousness of others, but in a spiritual way. And as you were talking about, how did you call it? Sorry. This Dharma-based communitarianism. I mean, it's based on the values of Krishna consciousness. So I think that in order for people to understand these things and take responsibility, they don't have to be like devotees. They can follow their own religion, but there has to be this value and this notion that I'm not the enjoyer. And then I think that there can be a responsibility for others, and then seeing other animals as praja, as you said. That I like that concept very much of Parikshit Maharaj in Srimad Bhagavatam. I thought it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking about these things, how they're, and it's not easy. And also, like, legally speaking, we can have certain things in laws, but if the consciousness of the persons who are applying the law is not there, then it's no value. There's no value. So.
Thank you. These are big topics, and we have another lawyer here. We can have some discussion on personhood of animals and legal recognition. The way these Sue Donaldson and her colleague talk about animal citizenship is in quite precise ways, which are kind of stretching the notion of citizenship, because, yes, as you said, it's generally understood in the ways that you described. I can't, out of my memory, give details, but there is thinking about that. But as you said, it's about the fundamental attitude. Who is the enjoyer? That's really what it boils down to, doesn't it? Yeah. So I think on that note, I'll say thank you all very much, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanande.
Krishna-ksetra Maharaj ki jai.